Hello and welcome. You're watching The Explosive Exclusive. I'm Padmaja Joshi. The 22nd of January, of course, is the consecration of the Ram Mandir, but it wouldn't have been possible without two things. The evidence of the presence of a temple at the spot where the disputed structure had stood, and of course, the judgment from the Supreme Court. But what went into finding that piece of evidence? It was years and years of painstaking work, despite the kind of resistance that the Archeological Survey of India was met with, especially of the political kind. But if there's one name that stands out when it comes to finding the evidence of Ram and a Ram temple there, it is Mr. K K Muhammed. He doesn't need any introduction, but at this point, it is also a personal victory, a personal vindication for him. Mr. Muhammed, thanks very much for speaking to us. I'll obviously start by asking you, what is the archaeological perspective for you for the 22nd of January?
Yes, I do think it because, it is the victory of the truth. Because, there was especially we had to face a lot of questions, a lot of problems from the Marxist historians of JNU and Aligarh University. So their propaganda machinery was very good and it was very well oiled also. And for the first time in the case of Ram Janam Bhoomi, that myth has been shattered. So this is a great day for all of us, not only for the Ram Bhaktas, but even for those people who stand for the truth and for archaeological truth.
Very interesting. You speak of motivated historians specifically from AMU and Jawaharlal Nehru University. But before we speak about them in detail, take us back to those days when you were a young archaeologist. You were involved in the original excavations as far back as 1976 and 77 under Professor B.B. Lal. In fact, subsequently in the 80s, when reports of the antecedents of the site began to be published in the Indian Express, you felt compelled to respond as a young official yourself about what you had managed to unearth in the 1970s. Tell us about those days.
Yeah. So, see, the excavation started in the year 1976-77 under Professor B.B. Lal. We were in the School of Archaeology at that time, and we had gone for the excavation. And whenever we take up the excavation of a work, before that we make an exploration all around the area. So as part of that one, we went into the mosque and we were stopped by a guard. There was a police person. But we told them that we have nothing to do with this one, whether it is a mosque or this one temple. But we are researchers. So he allowed us to go inside. And we went inside. I could see that, all the pillars on which the mosque was standing, that was Hindu temple pillars. Now the question is how to identify, how to distinguish whether it is a Hindu temple or a Islamic temple. Actually, we are precisely being trained for that one, archaeologists. So, in Hindu temples, there will be Purna Kalasha would be there. Purna Kalasha is a symbol of prosperity in Hinduism. It is one of the Ashtamangala Chinnas, 8 auspicious symbols. It was engraved on that one, which of course would not be there in a Muslim mosque. So that was the first one. And then there are certain sculptures also engraved on that one, that is Hindu sculptures, but that was defaced, so it was not very well discernible. Then when Professor Lal excavated on the western side also, on the southern side also, he could get the brick bases on which the temple was standing. So that was the second most convincing evidence. And then during the excavation, a number of sculptures, small sculptures made of terracotta, that was also excavated. So it was on the basis of this conclusive proof. At that time, Professor Lal had come to the conclusion that there was a temple below the mosque. But that was the year 76 and 77. This was not a very big issue. So he did not highlight it as many people wanted. Because he had described it in a subdued way. So the Marxist historians of JNU and Aligarh Muslim University, they took undue advantage of it. they went to the bazaar saying that Professor Lal had excavated the site and he did not get anything associated with the temple. And hence, there is no need of handing over the site to the Muslim community, to the Hindu community. That is the statement which they had made on almost all the English newspapers. Naturally, Professor Lal had to defend himself and he had to come out and he had to highlight, and he said, no, we have got a number of things associated with the temples. And then I was at that time in Madras. I was working as a deputy superintending archaeologist. So I said, what Professor Lal has stated, that is the right thing. That is the correct version of the thing, because a number of things associated with the temples have been excavated from there. And then I also said, none of these people are archaeologists, they are all historians. None of them had visited the site during this excavation period. And even after that also they have not visited the site. So they have no locus standi and they have no domain competence to speak on a purely technical subject. That was my second part. And the third part was, this is because I said that I was the only Muslim who had participated in the excavation. And I have seen all those temple pillars also, the terracotta sculptures also. And the site is as important for the Hindu community as Makkah and Medina are for Muslims. And Muslims should willingly hand it over to Hindu community for constructing a magnificent temple. That was my submission. That was given by the Indian Express on 15th of December 1990, which completely shattered the entire Marxist historian. Because number one, they had no locus standi, they had no domain competence also, none of them had visited the site, none of them had participated in the excavation. Then how would they come with such an opinion? So it just completely shattered them, none of them could give me a reply. And from that moment onwards, a different version started coming out.
Well, at least you had the courage, despite a lot of resistance, to put your version and your archaeological version out. But before you responded to the article in the Indian Express, like you said, and put out the version of what you saw, you were warned by your seniors that there is a very powerful Marxist lobby that, you know, you'll face a blowback from them. What was going on in your mind at that time? Did you fear that there would be repercussions on your career?
No, because I Mahadevan was a very top IAS officer. So, I mean, he knows the consequences. And being a government servant, because I was a government servant at that time, you are not supposed to speak on such a very sensitive issue, because it is against the conduct rules. And my condition was very dangerous because, you know, I had not crossed my probation period. If the probation period is not over, then they could dismiss me from the service without even issuing a show cause notice. So I was in such a dangerous condition. So we had discussed about all these things, all the pros and cons of the whole issue. Then at last I took a decision that I was the only Muslim who had participated in the excavation, and it is my duty now, whatever may come, it's my duty now to speak the truth. And I spoke the truth, and the Indian Express carried the news in all its editions. So it had its own wide ramification. As I said, there was no reply at all from the Marxist historian. For the first time, they were cornered.
You know, there's also a wonderful anecdote I was reading about where apparently once you had put out that statement, you were publicly pulled up by the then Director General of the Archaeological Survey and, you know, members of the Cultural Ministry. You were asked how you could make such a public statement, even though you were a junior government official. At that time, you chose to respond to this reprimand by citing some verses from the Gita. Tell us about what you said then.
See, because it was not only Dr. Joshi, Dr. N.C. Joshi, he's a great Sanskrit scholar. And then this one, Dr. R.C. Tripathi, he was the Secretary Culture. They had come to Madras for some other kind of some still proof seminar. So they took me and they questioned me, how did you make such a statement? And they were right. because they had to take action also against me. They were completely right. And they asked me, how did you make such a statement? You are a government servant when your probation period is not over. You should not have made such a statement, a very, very dangerous and a very sensitive statement. So I told them, because they had a very good impression also about me, because earlier I had done some very good work. So I said, sir, that I had done it for a cause. It is a moment where I had to take a decision. And it is for the betterment of the world. And then I quoted from Bhagavad Gita. Loka samsahame vapi sambhashyan kartumohasi. So whatever you do it for the welfare of the world and for the humankind. That was a quotation, which further enraged him, that further provoked him. He said, Muhammad, I am a Brahmin from Allahabad. You are teaching me Sanskrit, I am going to suspend you right now at this moment. So then I quoted another, was, I said, sir, I had done my duty. So dharme nidhanam shreya. I had done my duty, and even death is also welcome for that. He was completely blown off his feet. Completely blown off his feet. And then he was a changed person now. And he said, well, Mr. Muhammad, this should have been spoken by an archaeologist. And you are an archaeologist. This plain truth should have been spoken by a Muslim archaeologist. And you are a Muslim archaeologist. But I am under instruction because this communist lobby, because it is for the first time they had no reply at all. So they had exerted their pressure to suspend me, and they knew that especially I was having a running battle with Irfan Habib on the discovery of the great Ibadat Khana, because I made a discovery of Ibadat Khana and Christian chapel at Fatehpur Sikri while I was in Aligarh Muslim University, which he could not digest. So I was running a battle also with him. So they all pressurized them to take action against me, but they were sympathetic to me. So I was finally, and these people also, that is I Mahadevan, and some of the professors from the University of Madras, Professor K Raman, they were all intervened. And my suspension was converted into a transfer from Madras to Goa. So that was the action taken against me.
Eventually, when the matter went from the Allahabad High Court all the way up till the Supreme Court, of all the pieces of evidence that you had managed to unearth and you continue to stand by it, what do you think proved the most clinching bit of evidence to show that yes, indeed, this was and will remain a Ram Mandir?
Yeah, the second part of the excavation was not done by Professor Lal and me. It was done by Dr. B.R. Mani. He is a very seasoned, very well-known archaeologist and a very sober archaeologist also. And he had a team of under himself. So it was done by them. And we, at that time, while we did the excavation under Lal, we could get 12 temple pillars. We could see 12 temple pillars. And when Dr. Mani took up the excavation as per the direction of the Allahabad High Court in 2003, more than 50 pillar bases were excavated, showing that it was a magnificent temple, and that too in 17 rows. That was a great achievement, because we never expected that we would be getting this number of pillar bases from there. And then there were a number of every temple would be having the Shikara portion of the temple, so that many architectural members of the Shikara was also excavated from there. And especially there is just below this Kalasha, there will be Amalka. That Amalka, which is exclusively a part of the temple, that was also excavated. 263 terracotta idols were excavated, which was part of the temple, not at all part of the mosque, because there were sculptures of men also, ladies also, lady drum players also. None of this could be excavated from a mosque area, but it was part and parcel of the temple area. And then there was a pranala. What is the pranala? Pranala is this one. Every day you have to bathe the main deity, and the Abhisheka Jala goes through a gargoyle. So that is Magara Pranala in almost all the North Indian temples and South Indian temples also. Magara means crocodile. That is a representation of river Ganga also. So that was excavated. This was again a very conclusive report. And then this one, when the demolition had taken up, at that time there was a Vishnu Hari Shila Palat. It is in 20 lines, which clearly says that this temple is dedicated to that Mahavishnu who had killed Bali. So who had killed Bali? That is Lord Sri Ram. Who had killed, again it says, who had killed 10-headed person. So who is that one? Again Sri Ram. So it was on the basis of all these conclusive evidences. And you know, during the excavation also, I mean, 1/4 of the laborers were from the Muslim community. Because they said, you know, the laborers may change things and other things. They may try to manipulate. So 1/4 of this one laborers were from the Muslim community. And then everything was recorded. With this one recorded also at that time, recorded with the cameras also, and also with the video cameras. And then there were representatives and lawyers of the work committee, and also Archaeological Survey of India. Then independent judicial officers appointed by the High Court. That was also there. So it was, you know, I mean, under the surveillance of all these people, this kind of excavation had taken place. But communist historian came with some kind of other arguments. That I will speak to you later on.
No, so tell us now, what did these historians allege about you?
No, because you know, when this one came that I was part of the excavation under Professor B.P. Lab, they came and said, you know, take it on, there is one Mr. Rizvi is there. He was the chairman of this one department of history, a legal Muslim university. He came with a great discovery that K K Muhammed was not at all part of the excavation team. That was the statement which he had given. And he is habitually, he speaks such lies, you know, even in some other context also he has spoken that kind of lies. So he said that K K Muhammed was never part of the excavation team under Professor B.P. Lal. So at that time, you know, because Professor B.P. Lal was not in India, then he was in America, I immediately contacted him. And then he gave a statement to Times of India. So K K Muhammed was very well with me during the excavation. And then there were 4 other living members of our excavation team. All others have passed away. There were 4 living members of our excavation. They gave the statement, K K Muhammed was very well part of the excavation. And he was excavating this one. And it was not me alone. The entire batch was there. And my immediate neighbor who had participated in the excavation was Jayashree Ramanathan. Do you know who is this Jayashree Ramanathan? He is the wife of this one minister in the Rajiv Gandhi's ministry. And he is the present spokesperson also, Jairam Ramesh. Jairam Ramesh's wife was also with me in the same excavation. So we were 10 people there. She was looking after the trench A and I was looking after trench B. So it was going on like that. So these people, and Irfan Habib went to the extent of giving a statement in a Malayalam paper associated with Jamaat Islami. He said, K K Muhammed has not only was not part of the excavation, but he had never seen, he had no association at all with Ayodhya. So that was the statement given by him. So these are the kind of people, you know, who could speak blatant lies right in front of anybody. But you know, if there are none to contradict them, then they would carry the day. So it was for the first time again they were completely exposed.
You know, you have spoken again and again about how you were the only Muslim archaeologist who was a part of the entire dig at Ayodhya. Did you feel that there was a hostility from the community? How did organizations, for example, like the Sunni Waqf Board or the Babri Masjid Action Committee, what was the kind of reaction that you got from there?
Naturally, because you know, the Muslim community is, they have got certain conviction is there. And naturally, and I come from an area, I have come from Calicut. Calicut also there is another place known as Kedwali, where PFI and other organizations are very active. So naturally, one section of the Muslim community would be totally against me. and there was a lot of pressure I had to withstand. That would be there, and I was expecting it. And then the second thing is, there is another section of the liberal Muslim community. They appreciated it also, but that is a very small minority of the people. That is the problem. And I expected certain help from certain corners, which of course did not come through also. So all these things, put me in a very tight position. But somehow we have managed, and we are going to have the opening and the Pran Pratishtha on 22nd of January, which would be a great day for the entire country. It's not only for Hindus and Muslims, it would be a great day for the entire country. And now we have to move on further, because there are some more vexatious problems. We have to solve those problems. And then both the Hindus and Muslims, they should join together to construct a very strong India. That is what is needed. Let us stop all this quarreling over Hindus, Muslims, or Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and other things.
Well, if only things were that simple. Unfortunately, politics makes it far more complicated. The truth on the one side and what is projected as truth in the history on the other side. But nobody can stop an idea whose time has come. For standing by your truth, Mr. K K Muhammed, thanks very much for speaking to us. A pleasure as always. Quick break.